Chapter 2. Hunt Twice as Hard. A giant swarm of bats flew in between the low branches of trees. Hunter bobbed his head along to the loud rhythmic sound that the bats produced. Hunter started to sing a song with the sounds. Oh, I am a hunter hunting for some prey. I am sure I will be hunting all day. The swarm flew off in the distance, and the sound stopped abruptly, which caused him to run and investigate why the music stopped. Hunter came to an abrupt stop at the edge of a cliff that dipped down into a large, dry 30-foot deep lake. Hunter's eyes went wide with shock, because sitting in the middle of the lake was a giant and furry troll. The troll was covered from head to toe, with long white fur except for massive, pale hands and feet. The troll also had two large heads atop its massive frame. Hunter sized the creature up and a smirk appeared on his face. He is a big one. This might be fun, he thought as he took a step backward. He ran and jumped off the edge. Hunter was then hit in the gut and launched backwards into the wall. The creature slowly stood up 20 feet tall, and it let out a loud yawn. The heads looked around, and when they spotted Hunter trapped in the wall, it let out a roar, and the hair that surrounded its torso rose up and started to sway like snakes. Hunter's eyes started to glow, and a huge sphere of flames surrounded his body and grew massive. The creature was knocked down from lava rocks that were launched from Hunter's trick to its heads. He stood inside a massive hole, and he stared at the down troll. He shook his head and let out a sigh, and he jumped down out of the hole and landed safely on the ground. He looked at the bracers and said, "Now how do I activate these?" The creature sat up, and a pair of pale, featureless faces stared at him, and the creature's shoulders started to bounce up and down, and a deep rumbling was heard from the creature. Hunter raised one eyebrow up in confusion. He then lifted his foot off the ground, and the rumbling transformed into a high-pitched cackle. Hunter looked around and noticed the ground was covered with white fur that slithered about like snakes. Hunter jumped 1,000 feet in the air. Then two of the strands from the ground impaled his hands. He winced in pain. Like a flash, the hair sunk into the ground, slamming Hunter to his knees, causing him to wince in pain. The hair from the torso parted to reveal a large ring of cobalt eyes that surrounded a white and leathery underbelly. The eyes stared at Hunter, and the parted hair shot toward Hunter, wrapped around his entire body, and brought him in closer. The belly opened up with a wet squelch to reveal rows upon rows of sharp teeth that dripped with viscous red saliva. The hair detached from the creature's torso, and Hunter was dropped into the maw. The mouth snapped shut, and the hair fell back into place, and the troll sat down with a thud. A few seconds later, the troll started to groan in pain. Just then, the torso exploded in flames and viscera. Hunter jumped out in the midst of the flames as the creature fell back, and he landed on the ground and snapped his fingers. The gems on the bracer started to glow, and Hunter smiled. I finally remembered what that copy did. He turned around, and the creature stood up with a giant hole in its torso. The creature stood up, and it started to sway from side to side. Hunter's eyes glowed, and he held out his hands, and blades made out of fire and water appeared before him. He grabbed the fire blade with his right hand and the water with his left. He held the element, swords behind himself, and he squatted low to the ground, and like a flash he took off in a sprint toward it. He ran under the creature's legs and held the blades out in front of his body. Hunter stood up, and the blades disappeared. The fur on the ground and on the creature turned gold and then fell apart in tiny flakes. The ground started to shake violently, which caused Hunter to take a ready position. Spheres of fire and water appeared around his fists. The ground where Hunter stood started to crumble, and he jumped backwards and landed in front of the boulders. A giant metallic spherical dome arose from the ground. It let out a loud hiss, and the dome split open to reveal a white platform with a white podium on it. Hunter's eyes returned to normal, and the spheres vanished as he walked toward the dome. When he got closer, he saw that a wide black leather strap laid on it. The belt had 6 green gemstones on it and a gold buckle. Hunter picked it up, and the console started to glow red, and a holographic image of a middle-aged woman was projected onto the rock wall. The woman sat inside a small metal room on a podium. The woman cleared her throat as sounds of roars and screams of terror were muffled. "Well, this is it, my child. If you make it out alive, I hope you return and save this kingdom from this horror as the prophecy foretold. If you do return, the stone wielder belt will help. The blacksmith who created it said that you simply put it on and stomp any foot to activate and deactivate it. She placed her left hand on the screen as tears started to well in the corners of her eyes. Then the feed shut off. Hunter put the belt around his waist and fastened the buckle. He stepped off of the platform and stomped his right foot, and the gems on the belt started to glow bright. He lifted his hands up and the boulders levitated a few feet from the ground. He moved his hand back from side to side and the boulders swayed. Hunter set the boulders back and sat down and lifted his hands up. A citywide portion of the ground that he sat on lifted out of the ground and levitated a few hundred feet out of the pit. Hunter stood up and ran to the edge of the platform and jumped off. He landed on the ground in a squat, and spiderweb cracks appeared beneath his feet. The gems stopped glowing as he stood up, and the platform exploded. The sun started to peek over the horizon, and Hunter started to stretch and yawn as a long gold string fell from the sky, and it landed on top of Hunter's head. Hunter reached up and took it off his head. He looked at the string with a quizzical expression. He then tied it loosely around the belt and continued down the path, whistling the tune of the bats.